The Monarchy of Thailand refers to the constitutional monarchy and monarch of the Kingdom of Thailand. The King of Thailand is the head of state and head of the ruling Royal House of Chakri. Although the current Chakri Dynasty was created only in 1782, the existence of the institution of monarchy in Thailand is traditionally considered to have its roots from the founding of the Sukhothai Kingdom in 1238, with a brief interregnum from the death of Ekkathat to the accession of Taksin in the 18th century. The institution was transformed into a constitutional monarchy in 1932 after the bloodless Siamese Revolution of 1932. The monarchy's official residence is the Grand Palace in Bangkok. However, the present king spends much of his time at the Chitralada Palace, or the Klai Kangwon Villa in the beach resort city of Hua Hin. The current monarch of Thailand is Bhumibol Adulyadej. The king has reigned since the death of his elder brother Ananda Mahidol on the 9th of June 1946, making him the world's longest reigning current monarch and the world's longest-serving head of state. King Bhumibol is not just a symbolic figurehead but possesses some powers, such as being the prerogative of royal assent and the power of pardon. King Bhumibol is generally seen very favorably by the Thai people and is protected by lèse majesté laws. The King of Thailand's titles include Head of State, Head of the Armed Forces, Adherent of Buddhism, and Upholder of Religions. History. Origin. The current concept of Thai kingship has evolved through 800 years of absolute rule. The first king of a unified Thailand was the founder of the Kingdom of Sukhothai, King Sri Indraditya, in 1238. The idea of this early kingship is said to be based on two concepts derived from Hinduism and Theravada Buddhist beliefs. The first concept is based on the Vedic Hindu caste of Kshatriya, or warrior ruler, in which the king derives his powers from military might. The second is based on the Theravada Buddhist concept of Dhammaraja. Buddhism having been introduced to Thailand somewhere around the 6th century CE, the idea of the Dhammaraja is that the king should rule his people in accordance with Dharma and the teachings of the Buddha. These ideas were briefly replaced in 1279, when King Ramkaweng came to the throne. Ramkaweng departed from tradition and created instead a concept of paternal rule, in which the king governs his people as a father would govern his children. This idea is reinforced in the title and name of the king, as he is still known today, Phokan Ramkaweng. This lasted only briefly, however. By the end of the kingdom, the two old concepts had returned as symbolized by the change in the style of the kings. Pho was changed to Phalya, or Lord. Kings of Ayutthaya. The Kingdom of Sukhothai was eventually supplanted by the Kingdom of Ayutthaya, which was founded in 1351 by King Rame the Bodhi I. During the Ayutthayan period, the idea of kingship changed. Due to ancient Khmer tradition in the region, the Hindu concept of kingship was applied to the status of the leader. Brahmins took charge in the royal coronation. The king was treated as a reincarnation of Hindu gods. Ayutthaya historical documents show the official titles of the kings in great variation: Indra, Shiva and Vishnu, or Rama. Seemingly, Rama was the most popular, as in Rame the Bodhi. However, Buddhist influence was also evident, as many times the king's title and unofficial name, Dhammaraja, an abbreviation of the Buddhist Dharmaraja. The two former concepts were re-established, with a third, older concept taking hold. This concept was called Dvaravha, which was an idea borrowed by the Khmer Empire from the Hindu-Buddhist kingdoms of Java, especially the idea of a scholar class based on Hindu Brahmins. The concept centered on the idea that the king was an incarnation of the god Vishnu and that he was a bodhisattva, therefore basing his power power on his religious power, his moral power, and his purity of blood. The king, portrayed by state interests as a semi-divine figure, then became, through a rigid cultural implementation, an object of worship and veneration to his people. From then on, the monarchy was largely removed from the people and continued under a system of absolute rule. Living in palaces designed after Mount Meru's, the kings turned themselves into a Chakravatin, where the king became an absolute and universal lord of his realm. Kings demanded that the universe be envisioned as resolving around them, and expressed the powers through elaborate rituals and ceremonies. For 4 centuries these kings ruled Ayutthaya, presiding over some of the greatest period of cultural, economic, and military growth in Thai history. Sakdana and Rajasa, the kings of Ayutthaya, created many institutions to support the rule, which were similar to the contemporary regulations of the royal court of George V the Brilliant, but modified to comport with Southeast Asian Muang Mandala circles of power. Whereas feudalism developed in the European Middle Ages, Ayutthayan King Trailokanai instituted Sakdana, but usually translated as dignity marks. Quote, this comported with the names of 2 kingdoms further north, Lana million fields and Sip Song Fan Na 12,000 fields. Quote, Rachasap is required by court etiquette as an honorific register consisting of a special vocabulary used exclusively for addressing the king, or for talking about royalty. Royal authority. The king was chief administrator, chief legislator, and chief judge, with all laws, or orders, verdict and punishments theoretically originating from his person. The king's sovereignty was reflected in the titles Lord of the Land and Lord of Life. The king's powers and titles were seen by foreign observers as proof that the king was an absolute monarch in the European sense. However, in Siamese tradition, the duty and responsibility of the king was seen as developed from the ancient Indian theories of royal authority, which resemble enlightened absolutism, although the emphasis is not on rationality but on Dhamma. This was disrupted in 1767, when Thai digests of the Dhammasar were lost when a Burmese army under the Along Payu dynasty invaded, sacked and burned the city of Ayutthaya. Kingdom restored. An interlude filled by civil war was ended when King Taksin restored the dominion under what has been called the Thonburi Kingdom. Chakri Kings in 1782. King Bodha Yodfachulalaka ascended the throne and moved the capital from the Thonburi side to the Bangkok side of the Chao Phraya River. There he established the House of Chakri, the current ruling dynasty of Thailand. He also established the office of Supreme Patriarch as the head of the Sangha, the order of Buddhist monks. During the Ratanakosin period, the Chakri kings tried to continue the concepts of Ayutthayan kingship, once again emphasizing the connection between the sovereign and his subjects. On the other hand, they continued to not relinquish any authority of the throne. Kings Bordeleau et Leonowen and Nangklao created a semblance of a modern administration by creating a supreme council and appointing chief officers to help with the running of the government. Onkat marked a significant break in tradition when he spent the first 27 years of his adult life as a Buddhist monk, during which time he became proficient in the English language. Before ascending the throne as king, he continued the appointment of officers to his supreme council, the most notable being Somde Chao Phraya Prerawongs and Sisurya Wongs, both of whom acted as chief ministers for King Mongkut. Chulalongkorn ascended the throne as a minor at age 15 in 1868, and as King of Siam on 16 November 1873. As a prince, he had been tutored in Western traditions by the governess, Anna Leonowens, intent on reforming the monarchy along Western lines. During his minority he traveled extensively to observe Western administrative methods. He transformed the monarchy along Western lines of an enlightened ruler. He abolished the practice of kneeling and crawling in front of the monarch, and repealed many laws concerning the relationship between the monarch and his people, while continuing many of the ancient aspects and rituals of the old kingship. In 1874, he created a Privy Council copied from the European tradition, to help him rule his kingdom. During his reign, Siam was pressured to relinquish control of its old tributaries of Laos and northern Malaya to Western powers. Siam itself narrowly avoided being colonized. In 1905, 37 years after his coronation, Chulalongkorn ended slavery with the Slave Abolition Act. In 1867, slaves accounted for 1/3 of Siamese population. His son, Vajiravad, ascended to the throne in 1910 and continued his father's zeal for reform to bring the monarchy into the 20th century. The perceived slow pace of reform resulted in the Palace Revolt of 1912. In 1914, Vajiravad determined that the act providing for invoking martial law, first promulgated by his father in 1907, was not consistent with modern laws of war, nor convenient for the preservation of the security of the state. So it was amended to a more modern form that, with minor amendments, continued in force through subsequent changes in government. Prajadyupok succeeded his brother in 1925. The Eton and Sandhurst educated monarch created a council similar to a cabinet, where the most important government officials could meet to decide state affairs. This advisory and legislative council, styled the Supreme Council of State of Siam, was founded on the 28th of November 1925 and existed until 1932. Constitutional monarchy. In June 1932, a group of foreign-educated students and military men called the Promoters carried out a bloodless revolution, seizing power, and demanded that King Prajadyupok grant the people of Siam a constitution. The king agreed, and in December 1932 the people were granted a constitution ending 150 years of absolute Chakri rule. From then on, the role of the monarch was relegated to that of a symbolic head of state. His powers from then on were exercised by a prime minister and the National Assembly. In 1935, King Pradyupok abdicated the throne, following disagreements with the government. He lived in exile in the United Kingdom until his death. The king was replaced by his young nephew Ananda Mahidol. The new king was 10 years old and was living abroad in Switzerland. A council of regents was appointed in his place. During this period, the roles and powers of the king were entirely usurped by the fascist government of Plak Phobuntsongkhram, who changed the name of the kingdom from Siam to Thailand, and aligned it on the side of the Axis powers in the Pacific theater of World War II. By the end of the war, Phobuntsongkhram was removed and a young king returned. The Free Thai movement provided resistance to foreign occupation during the war and helped rehabilitate Thailand after the war. After Rama Vii's sudden death from a bullet wound in 1946, Prince Bhumibol Adulyadej, aged 19 years old, became the new monarch. As of 2015, he is the world's longest reigning monarch. The monarchy in the 21st century. Since c. 2000, the role of the Thai monarchy has been increasingly challenged by scholars, media, observers and traditionalists, and as more educated pro-democracy interests began to express the rights to speech, many deemed that a series of laws and measures relating to lèse majesté in Thailand, aimed at protecting the king and the royal family, are hindrances to freedom of expression. Dozens of arrests, hundreds of criminal investigations and multiple imprisonments have been made based on these laws. King Bhumibol Adulyadej, in his 2005 National Birthday broadcast, also indicated that he could be criticized if the criticism is constructive and not politically motivated. The lèse majesté law is part of Thailand's criminal code, which also contains general provisions on defamation and libel of private individuals. The king is assisted in his work and duties by the private secretary to the King of Thailand and the Privy Council of Thailand, in consultation with the head of the cabinet, the Prime Minister. In accordance with the constitution, the king is no longer the originator of all laws in the kingdom. That prerogative is entrusted to the National Assembly of Thailand. All bills passed by the legislature, however, require his royal assent to become law. The monarchy's household and finances are managed by the Bureau of the Royal Household and the Crown Property Bureau respectively. These agencies are not considered part of the Thai government and all personnel are appointed by the king. The heir apparent to the Thai monarchy is the Crown Prince of Thailand, Prince Maha Vajiralongkorn. The succession to the throne is governed by the 1924 Palace Law of Succession, promulgated by King Vajiravat. Section 22 of the Constitution clearly stated that the amendment of the Palace Law shall be prerogative of the king. Journalist Andrew McGregor Marshall has argued that behind the scenes, there are endless struggles for the throne. His book has been banned in Thailand and holding a copy results in 3 years imprisonment and a fine. The junta, which took power in 2014, has been aggressive in jailing critics of the monarchy. In 2015, it will spend $540 million, more than the budget of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, on a promotional campaign called Worship, Protect and Uphold the Monarchy. The campaign includes television commercials, seminars in schools and prisons, singing contests, and competitions to write stories and films praising the king. This is not propaganda, Prayut Chan-o-cha, the leader of the junta, said. The youth must be educated on what the king has done. In its fiscal year 2016 budget, the ruling military government has increased its expenditure for upholding, protecting and preserving the monarchy to 18 billion baht, an increase of 28% for this budget line item since 2014 when it took power. List of King's Royal Regalia. The present set of Royal Regalia of Thailand and the royal utensils was created mostly during the reign of King Rama I and Rama IV, after the previous set was lost during the sack of Ayutthaya by the Burmese in 1767. The regalia is used mainly during the coronation ceremony of the king at the beginning of every reign. The regalia is presently on display in the Museum of the Grand Palace in Bangkok. Royal 9-tiered umbrella, the most important regalia. Currently there are 7, distributed at various palaces. Great Crown of Victory, official headgear. Sword of Victory, found in Tonle Sap in 1784. The sword represents military power. Royal Staff, symbol of justice. Royal Fan and Fly Whisk. Royal fan made of gold and the royal fly whisk made from the tail of a white elephant. Royal slippers, official footwear made of gold. The Thai royal utensils are also for the personal use of the monarch, comprising the betel nut set, the water urn, the libation vessel, the receptacle. These unique objects are always placed on either side of the king's throne or his seat during royal ceremonies. Other symbols of kingship. Royal thrones of Thailand. Currently there are 6, distributed at various throne halls in the Grand Palace. Royal white elephant, usually one to represent each reign. The current one resides at Dusit Zoo. The king also has 10 others. The royal Garuda, emblem of the king and of Thailand. Royal Standard of Thailand, official standard of the king. Royal flags, personal flags of the king and royal family. Sanson Phra Barami. The royal anthem. Royal ceremonies. The king and other members of his family carry out many royal ceremonies per year, some dating from the 13th century. Royal coronation ceremony. Royal barge procession. Royal ploughing ceremony. The changing of the robes of the Emerald Buddha. Trooping the colors. Oath of allegiance ceremony. Speech from the throne to the National Assembly of Thailand. Royal orders and decorations. The king is sovereign of several royal orders and decorations. The prerogative to appoint and remove any persons from these orders are at the king's discretion. However, sometimes recommendations are made by the Cabinet of Thailand and the Prime Minister. The most auspicious order of the Rajamitrabhorn, the most illustrious order of the Royal House of Chakri, the ancient and auspicious order of the Nine Gems, the most illustrious order of Chulachomkieleo, the Ratanavarabhorn order of merit, the honorable order of Rama, the most exalted order of the White Elephant, the most noble order of the Crown of Thailand, the most admirable order of the Direct Gunabhorn, the Vallabhabhorn order, the order of Ramkirati, the Vijiramala order. Bibliography.